Well, hello, everybody. Today we are here with Candace Gant, Dr. Jillian Murray, and Dr. Max Schmidheiser. The Mind Your Brain Foundation and their virtual reality project is HobbleJog's most recent grant recipient. Today we're going to spend some time learning more about Mind Your Brain and the virtual reality project. So I'd like to start us off by introducing you to Candace Gant. Candace is a TBI survivor, founder and co-director of Mind Your Brain at Penn Medicine Conferences, the founder and executive director of the Mind Your Brain Foundation, and a board member of the Brain Injury Association of Pennsylvania. She visits legislators in Harrisburg and Washington, D.C. as part of her role as co-chair of the Pennsylvania Brain Injury Coalition. Candace was voted Philadelphia Magazine's Health Hero of 2017 and was featured in Wounded Brains, authored by Sandra Markle, and Second Wind, The Resilience of Women, written by Beth Berkman. Candace is an athlete in her own right, finishing the Boston Marathon 3 times. She's completed 8 half Ironman and one full Ironman competition. Candace, welcome today. We are so excited that you're here. Please tell us more about Mind Your Brain Foundation.
It's a pleasure. First, thank you for having us. And we are so eternally grateful for your generosity in donating money to our foundation. We really appreciate it and look forward to this opportunity to tell you a little bit more about Mind Your Brain. So as you said, I'm a TBI survivor of 18 years ago. I was hit by a truck while I was bicycling, and that started the cascade of everything that's happened today. It launched me into a world that I was completely unfamiliar with and struggling for resources and rehabilitation tools. And in speaking with my neurosurgeon, Dr. Sean Grady at Penn Medicine, he's the chair of neurosurgery, and asking him desperate for help and hope after my injuries and looking for something for a more meaningful recovery. I then, in speaking with my doctor, asked him what resources were in my area, and he had no idea, being a surgeon. So of course I amassed, as we all do, besides Googling WebMD, we try to do something more significant and substantial to help our recovery. So I really amassed and was on a mission to find out as much resources as I could. And in doing that, I met a lot of other survivors that were struggling. And that really spoke to my heart about how important it was that we can get some resources to this vulnerable population. And with the help of Penn Medicine and the help of the Center for Brain Injury and Repair with Dr. Doug Smith, we organized the first conference in our area for brain injury survivors, just dedicated to that, building a community and resources, introducing them to options that they may have not been exposed to or have come in contact with. And so we put a conference together so that brain injury survivors would have a place to go to get really valuable information without having to search the internet for it, and had scientific evidence that some of the therapies that we introduced and workshops that we encourage people to attend, that would really launch them into a better recovery. We wanted to be the safety net.
That's awesome. I know, as a brain injury survivor myself, once I left the hospital system, it was like, all right, you're good now.
Good to go.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm like, but I'm not good. I don't know what I need. I felt very much, and I know that a lot of the survivors that we work with at HobbleJog have the same issue, that we are struggling for that roadmap. So we absolutely are so excited to support Mind Your Brain Foundation, because we have the same mission.
Indeed.
So
we're aligned.
Absolutely wonderful. Yes.
And I also have to offer to you and tell the listeners that it is a free conference. So we know that this population is really struggling to get back on their road to recovery. And so we make sure that all of our resources to introduce them to new technologies and new therapies, it's all free to attend the conferences.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
That's important to us. And so that is one of our initiatives with Mind Your Brain is our conferences. And the other is to promote research, as you're doing. We're looking for ways to invest in some meaningful research that will give the rehabilitation side, not only the bench and the scientific side, but really the rehabilitation side, which I think needs a lot of investment in to be able to get some really valuable tools for brain injury survivors to use. And we've come a long way. And our third initiative is virtual reality. We have an opportunity to partner.
So cool.
Yeah. It's really, it's honestly a little mind blowing when they talk about the metaverse. We're all catching up, trying to understand it, and then be in that world to see how that would be a part of our initiatives, be a part of our mission to use technology to improve the outcomes of brain injury survivors. So that's where we are right now. We're really excited about this platform that we're investing in.
That is so awesome. I have a 16-year-old son who got an Oculus Quest 2 for his birthday or Christmas, one of those. And he's like, "Mom, this is so cool." And so I've always been a little bit nervous to use it as a brain injury survivor because balance has been a big key for me, or lack thereof. Definitely lack thereof. So I can't wait to hear more about this project and how virtual reality can be used for people like me. Like, that's awesome.
Indeed. Well, let me take this opportunity then to introduce, these are two experts in this area, the virtual reality that's being built and tested. And I'll introduce you to Dr. Max Schmidhauser and Dr. Jillian Murray. And I'll let them tag team with me and tell you all about the amazing work that they're doing.
Awesome. Welcome. Carrie, I'm so glad to have you guys.
Thank you so much, Carrie, and thank you for the introduction, Candace. It's really a pleasure to be here with you today to talk about the exciting work that we're doing through the Mind Your Brain Foundation, and just to also express our appreciation to HobbleJog for the support of the work that we're doing. So essentially what I'd like to discuss just to start out, and then Dr. Murray can jump in also to talk a little bit about the mindfulness piece, which is our specific area of focus for this current phase of work that we're doing. But just the reason for virtual reality. The question is, what is it that really makes it unique? And to that, I would say it's incredibly unique in that, as I'm sure your son can attest to, I mean, you're in this whole other world, right? I mean, you're just there in this place that is completely different from the environment that you're actually sitting in and from what you're listening to. So what you're seeing and what you're hearing is totally different. You're transported into this other realm. And so, of course, that can be used for gaming purposes and for fun, but it also can have this application that is in the spirit of rehabilitation. And specifically, and again, Dr. Murray will talk a little bit about the mindfulness piece next, but just in terms of what VR lends is this ability to be in this wholly other place, completely other realm that can lend itself to something like a guided meditation exercise or guided visualization that has a lot of application for rehabilitation. And interestingly, so when we're talking about virtual reality, I think one thing that might be helpful for the audience listening to this is to know that in the past, the formats that were most commonly used were either non-immersive or semi-immersive virtual reality. And essentially what that means, non-immersive would be like, if you're in, say, a virtual space, navigating it, say, on your phone, like you're mostly aware of your surroundings, but there you are on your phone looking in this virtual space. A semi-immersive would be something like, that takes up your field of vision, but still is on a flat screen, two-dimensional screen. And so you're still there in your environment, but you're interacting with the stimuli there. And so interestingly, a lot of work has been done, for example, with physical therapists interestingly utilizing that feedback they're getting to help people with balance problems, for example. So virtual reality can certainly, if it's not done with that in mind, could be a trigger for some balance issues, but actually can also be used for rehabilitation purposes. And that's certainly been done a lot. And then fully immersive VR is what the Oculus 2, as you mentioned, that your son has, can really, it completely puts us in the full scope of our vision, and auditorily as well, into this place that can serve therapeutic ends. And so just with that as sort of an intro into the mindfulness modules that we're working on currently, I'll hand it off to Dr. Murray to talk about why mindfulness and what the idea is with that in this phase 1 of our research.
Yeah, thank you so much for that introduction. And again, thank you so much to, for being here and speaking to us about the program we're developing in our research, and also the financial support for us to be able to continue to do this very important work. So again, we are absolutely grateful. So mindfulness, I feel like most people have heard this term at this point. It's much more commonplace than it used to be. There's now all these apps and YouTube videos and all these things that mindfulness is more accessible to everyone, even kids these days. So we know that mindfulness is basically this state of being. It's having moment to moment awareness of our surroundings. So it's being more in tune with the environment, with ourselves, with our breathing, with how we're feeling. And it originated in really Eastern cultures, and has been adopted more, in recent years it's become more worldwide now. So we know that there's a whole lot of benefits of practicing mindfulness, and people may have heard of John Kabat-Zinn, who started implementing stress-based mindfulness reduction. So there's been a lot of research in the last probably 10 to 15 years on mindfulness and the benefits of mindfulness with different people and different populations. It's being used with persons that have eating disorders, that have chronic pain, with smoking cessation, with depression, chronic illness, a whole lot, breast cancer, other cancers. And there's so much research to support that it can be really beneficial. So one of the main things that it can be helpful with is improving emotional regulation. So how we regulate our thinking with what we're feeling, and then how that impacts our behavior and how we respond in situations with other people in our day-to-day life, as well as how we interact with our environment. And the research shows that it also increases things like our empathy. So being able to put ourselves in other people's shoes and see where they're coming from, being more open-minded and flexible in different situations. It increases things like patience and kindness. So, when you think about what persons after brain injury experience, we know that there's a lot of emotional changes that people experience, and emotional regulation can be really challenging. We know that there's increased irritability and anger after a brain injury. We also know that some people become more reactive. So their emotional response is augmented. Or some people experience more less reactive, where they're not as emotionally reactive in situations. So when you add all that together, we know that if we are feeling, if we're having difficulty managing our emotions, or we're feeling stress, or we're feeling anxious, then that in turn impacts our cognitive skills. So when we're not feeling at our best emotionally, we know it affects our ability to pay attention to something, to remember something, to go about planning and organizing how we're going to tackle a problem, or our reasoning skills. It really has, our emotion has such a huge impact on our day-to-day lives. So
yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that totally resonates with me. And I will say that I have been intentionally meditating and doing things such as that to help all of those things. I mean, it's been 8 years now since my brain injury, but I would say over the last 2 years, particularly during the pandemic, I had a really hard time. I know other people had a hard time too, but like mindfulness is what has actually gotten me through the pandemic.
Yeah, it's cool. And I think it is something that helps people in different ways. And Dr. Schmidheiser and I used to work on an outpatient brain injury program, and we would do mindfulness meditation every morning to start our clients and their day. And just I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. Just the response
awesome.
that our clients experienced. It was just incredible. It really helped them, and then helped move them forward in their recovery, because they were better able to focus. They were able to sort of shut the door on things that were causing issues for them. They would come in and, there's so many stressors that people with brain injuries experience, whether it's access to resources, financial stressors, not feeling well, obviously, grieving loss of, what your life was before. There's so much going on, and this just helped grounded people to then be able to better engage in their rehabilitation. So we took the same idea here, where our intention with these mindfulness modules is a starting point, especially as we develop more that are more task related, to work on a certain cognitive skill. For example, we would have people use our mindfulness modules first before engaging in those next level modules to start doing like cognitive tasks, because it would ground people and help them get into that moment and be better prepared and better able to fully participate in the additional modules of that would be more addressing cognitive skills. So that's one of the reasons why we started it. And the other reason is, Carrie, to your point, I think a lot of people are concerned that have experienced a brain injury about what is the environment of being in virtual reality going to be like for someone as a brain injury. So am I going to experience dizziness? Am I going to experience nausea? Is it too much stimulation for me? So we chose this to start because you go in this environment. You can choose whether or not to move throughout the environment. It's more you sit and you don't move and you observe your surroundings, and you're led through a guided meditation. And our goal really is to help us figure out whether or not, and we hope so, this use of technology is feasible with this population. So that's really our intention. And then we have 3 brain injury rehabilitation providers in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, Success Rehab, Remed, and Bancroft, who have allowed us to meet with their clients to actually test these mindfulness modules. So we're going to be starting
Come
that.
to Maryland. I want to try.
We'd be happy to explore that. I think that's exactly what we're looking forward to. Is we want to be able to be immersive in your communities everywhere, especially if we make it available for free for brain injury survivors that don't have the ability to get rehabilitation. It's not close to them. They have limitations. This would be a great opportunity for us to provide another resource for them.
Yeah. And so much of what we do at Mind Your Brain is because we're aware that there's significant funding limitations, that there's such a huge barrier for survivors accessing rehabilitation. So this is something that our hope is that people will be able to do independently, also at we hope that brain injury providers will hopefully choose to, use our technology as well. But our goal is for people to have better access to, the resources and care that they deserve and need.
Absolutely. I love that so much. So how have you gone about trying to, well, I guess you're in testing phase right now. So what is next step relative to getting this to hospitals, getting this to other brain injury rehab places? Like how are we spreading the word? Because we want to help.
Next step for us is really to test the technology. So we hope to have 50 participants, and we're going to be doing, before someone uses it, we're going to ask them to rate their stress levels, and then they're going to choose which one that they want to choose. There's 2 different environments that people can choose: a beach scene versus more of a mountain scene. And then when they finish, we're going to ask them to rate their stress levels again. And so then we'll be able to compare before and after. And that's to really gauge the effectiveness of the mindfulness module in reducing stress levels. But then we're also going to do qualitative interviews where we're going to speak to the persons after they use this technology and gain a better understanding of what the experience was like. Did they have any adverse reactions? What did they think was helpful? Do they have any feedback for us to improve the technology? So we're going to look at all this information and data. And we do intend to, publish. Hopefully we'll be accepted by a journal, and we hope to present at conferences because that will help to get the word out.
And just to add on to that, go ahead, Candace. Did you want to mention something?
No, I'll follow you. I think that we all
Sure.
have the same thing,
Yeah.
same discussion in mind.
Yeah, so I think just to, also circle back to your question, Carrie, about sort of the next steps. We just see this as the initial step, this first phase, in really hopefully being able to stay at the forefront of this technology as it continues to develop, with application to helping individuals and empowering individuals in the brain injury community. And so beyond the relaxation element of it, which is such a foundational piece of it, as you mentioned with your regular practice, because there are no 2 brain injuries that are the same. Everyone can have a bit of an issue in a certain area that maybe someone else doesn't. And so for some individuals, it may be issues with sustaining attention or visualization that may be difficult. And so this fills in those gaps. This really helps to ground someone in this very relaxing environment where they don't have to conjure it up if they're having difficulty visualizing or sustaining their attention. It's right there for them, so that can be an incredibly powerful tool. But the next steps beyond this touch on things that relate to brain injury education, and it's a really amazing, immersive format that's incredibly interactive. And then there are all these other applications beyond that relate to aspects of cognitive rehabilitation and aspects of different facets of empowerment through, say, different kind of behavioral strategies and techniques that can come through. There's really interesting research. There's a popular podcaster named Dr. Andrew Huberman, who's a Stanford neuroscientist, and he basically, one of the things he talks about is this non-sleep deep rest, or NSDR, which is basically a technical word for mindfulness or meditation that he puts out there. But he really looks at how this has a potential engaging in this in a regular basis to facilitate neuroplasticity, or the ability of the brain to make new connections. That, of course, is such an integral part of the rehabilitation process. And it just can also help to broaden and build new strengths, capacities, and techniques in that recovery process. So we're very excited about a lot of the different areas that this can be applied to.
Thanks. And then I'll piggyback on that and tell you about the board that we have. That we have leadership, curiosity, we're mission driven and innovative thinkers. So we want to build a whole library of these podcasts, not the podcast, excuse me. We want to build a library of more immersive programs. And so we want to build a city so that there's a grocery store and you have to go in and you have to select items to purchase. And you have to have, as we know, the decision-making process in a grocery store early on is overwhelming. And so
hard.
that's something, yeah, it's so hard picking your clothes in the morning. So we want to develop some modules that speak to those deficits that we have, and also handling money and getting around a city or a library, baking a cake for a holiday. And so those are the directions we'll take it in next, is that once we understand there's a tolerance for this and really have some significant improvement in their mindfulness and their emotional regulation, I think that we have some great opportunities we're looking forward to developing.
Wow. So it's interesting because when you said the grocery store, I remember in the rehab hospital I was in, they had like a fake grocery store, with like fake food, and I had to go shopping a couple of times and get through that and do it. And I remember how hard that was, and then how much harder it was in real life. And if I had had something like this, like what we're talking about, to practice before I actually did the real thing, wow, that would have been so amazing. And for as much as I look back and go, I had like zero resources, it is so heartwarming to know that people are out there like you and Mind Your Brain, and you're doing this research and you're helping this community of survivors. I'm so excited that HobbleJog got to be a small part of it.
Well, we're very thankful that you are. I think we make great partners in this, and we're happy that you're finding it as exciting as we are.
It's really awesome. So what else would you guys like to share?
Well, I can tell you that, the opportunity that you talked about expanding our testing, we'll look forward to those opportunities down the road. I think the more patients we have, the more experience we can get and the more understanding of the population. Although we know, and of course I do firsthand, and the expertise that Dr. Schmidhauser and Dr. Murray have, and they're as neuroscience neurologist, that lends itself. But I think practicing it, because every brain injury is different, I think bringing this to the community and getting more feedback, we'd look forward to working with you if you have any connections for us. I think that's a great next step. But also tell you that we're also asking there's a company in India, a rehabilitation center, that will also be testing this for us as well. And it's more of a market research than it is a test, but it has the opportunity to get to a larger population, an international population, to get their feedback.
Great. And that, gosh, seriously, if we can get this into the hands of every brain injury survivor, like how amazing would that be?
Amen. Exactly. that would really break my heart.
I am just imagining the wonderful things that could happen with this. So thank you guys so much for your hard work and for sharing all of this with me today. And I can't wait to keep working with you and see what we can do.
Thank you, Carrie.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having us on.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk soon.
Talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.